Hello, and welcome to another behind-the-scenes episode for Crusade for Myth Drannor. I'm the Dungeon Master, Bosheck, or Game Master, Director, whatever you want to call it. It's just me here today, and we're going to be going over a couple of the modules that we use. So my philosophy for playing on a VTT is that it is a completely different game from playing in person. You are not trying to replicate the in-person experience. They are two completely different animals. You cannot have as large of a party for a VTT if you're doing things like voice chat, because it's very difficult for people to talk at the same time or have side conversations. You don't have nearly as much kind of socialization at the table whenever you are playing with a VTT than you do online. Having said that, there are a lot of great things about a VTT. You can move through content quickly. You can have music tracks backing up your scenes as like mood setters. You can have fun little special effects. The math is done for you, which is something that's pretty important on a system like Pathfinder that has lots of bonuses and buffs constantly floating around and changing the math. The fact that this stuff is all done for you and automated is excellent. That's not something that you necessarily see in person at a table. It's going to take up time. But yeah, one of the things we do to make the experience different on the virtual tabletop in Foundry, we have modules that enhance things. We have special effects modules. We have modules that kind of automate the system for either damage or math. We have modules that change the way the software itself works to make it easier for us to use. So we're going to talk about some of those modules. This is going to be several videos long because I use probably too many modules, so I've broken them down into categories. This is not a comprehensive list, nor is it everything I use. It's a lot of modules. You don't really need that much unless the system says you need it. We play Pathfinder 1st Edition, so Pathfinder 1st Edition, I believe, recommends Stat Block Converter, the Stat Block Library, and I think PF Content. So the more you add, the more problems you can run into. So, especially if you're new to this, I would recommend starting small and only taking the things that you think you need and getting familiar with the core functionality of Foundry. Now, I'm not an expert on any of these. I don't know how to code, and I didn't code any of them. I have a little expertise with Excel, and that's about it. So if any major issues arise, it might be best to just seek troubleshooting help somewhere else. Maybe the Discord. Because I use so many modules, this is, again, not a 100% comprehensive list, and today we're going to be going over what I would call Foundry modules. And we will not be touching on any of the required modules that sort of make these work. If something says it needs it, it needs it. So Foundry modules are something that change or add to the functionality of the program itself. The idea here is this is a feature that maybe you would like to have access to in the software, or something that you just personally would like to use. The need for some of these modules has fallen off as Foundry adds new features. I cut off last edition a module that sort of checked compatibility on things. We've had some things that modified folders that are no longer needed, and those were useful at the time, and Foundry's kind of adopted some of those features into their core model, and it's very nice to have those. So these categories may bleed into each other. Keep in mind it's a loose list, but let's get started. The first module I have, and this is by no means ranked in any order other than loosely alphabetical, as I exported them and added them to the list, is Audio Preview. So Audio Preview adds the ability to, whenever you are using the audio browser, preview the item you're looking at, whether it's a sound effect or a song. The image browser obviously lets you preview images. You have a variety of options for looking at them, but no way to just check what kind of song or sound effect you're listening to. There's a small play button down here. You can play something and listen to it in the browser. This is the kind of thing that I think I really wish the system had natively, but this module is perfect. It's by Mia Nelava. I think I butchered that name. Mia Nella. And I really appreciate having audio preview. It's just a lightweight, good module. The next module on my list is Pop Out by Kakarato and Posnet. This is another one that's kind of like, why isn't this core? You can pop out various sheets and items into their own windows, just like that. Looks great. This is really useful, especially if you have an extra monitor or even more than 2 monitors. You can have multiple actor sheets open for quick reference. You can have various items open that you can edit on the fly. You can just close that out. It pops back in and then it closes in the system. The next module I have on my list here is Z-Scatter. Z-Scatter by Mad Wizard. This solves a lot of issues that I had with token stacking. So you've got a hidden Turandil and a hidden Jade here. You can see when you move them into each other, they just kind of stack up. And they're much easier to click on and select. You don't have a stack of tokens kind of hiding under one another. It makes everyone's life easier. My players are a big fan of this. I'm a big fan of it. I really like it. The next module I have on my list is DFred's Droppables. Now, a lot of these modules are going to have settings. I think audio preview doesn't. Oh, yeah, it totally does. You have some volume settings, and you can have the option to loop playback. I don't believe everything that I have does it. This lets you change the scattering, and there's actually an option over here to turn off Z-Scatter. I don't remember which one it is. By George, we can find it. You're going to see a lot of other modules that maybe you're not familiar with. Because I'm not going over everything. And I'm not turning everything off just to make this video. This is sort of Foundry how I run it, with 1 or 2 changes, because there was a module that I don't usually use that I thought was worth mentioning anyway. We'll get to that here in a minute. But we're talking about DFred's Droppables. So, DFred's Droppables over here has options for when you want to drag things in. What this module does is you can drag an entire folder of characters onto the map. You can set their elevation as you drag them on, and we just stack them up. There we go. That's all the player characters that are in the campaign right now. Got a nice little error there. I don't know what that is. We'll figure that out later. Next one on my list here is Find the Culprit by Moril and Emmanuel Weinberg. I think this is a very good module. It helps you find problems whenever you are experiencing issues. If something's not working right in your world, if you're throwing an error, what Find the Culprit does is it does simple A/B testing. You can tell it what modules maybe you want to keep enabled permanently, and what it's going to do is it's going to turn off a portion of your modules at a time to kind of restart your world and let you see what exactly is going on, so you can find out, hey, this problem keeps happening whenever I don't have this module on, or when I do have this module on, and you can gradually narrow it down as you continuously eliminate non-suspects. The next module on my list is Drag Ruler by Manuel Vogele. I'm given to understand this is coming as core functionality, I think. I don't want to make any promises on behalf of the Foundry team. but this is something that is great. It kind of helps enforce movement for both monsters and players. It gives a visual indicator of their maximum movement ranges, and this way you don't need your actor sheet open all the time. You can see Turandel has a green movement until he hits, I think, 20 feet. And then it goes yellow, and it's going to go red when he's got more movement he can take in a single turn. This is an excellent module, and I'm very happy to have just discovered it recently. The next module I have is Dungeon Draw by McGlintock. That is going to be right here. It adds its own little button, and whenever you're on a map, if you are an old school DM and you want to draw your map as you go, this is what you would use. I use this module very rarely, but I have used it in the past. This is a way to quickly, on the fly, create dungeons on Foundry's map, so you don't have to worry about finding or making and importing maps from either the internet or using a map making software yourself. Obviously, you don't see a whole lot of this on the Crusade channel because I am either using maps I can find, or I'm often creating or recreating maps for and from adventures. The next sort of core Foundry functionality is token mold. I have this off right now, but this lets me have presets on placeable tokens categorized by actor type. We can put up the settings for token mold right here. We can say what we want the display bars to look like. We can add attributes. We can give a stat overlay. We can change the name. This does things like adding identifying prefixes or suffixes to otherwise identical monsters. So if you've got something like a bunch of wolves, you might have words describing or numbers describing wolf 1, wolf 2, wolf 3. This is looking at the wrong table right now, which is funny to me. You can select a compendium to sort of choose your adjectives out of. I like this a lot. It also allows you to take a creature or a set of creatures that are on the map and add this information to them. We've got a couple of gnolls here. We can go ahead and say on the name and that button. And that didn't work at all because this is an old scene and that gnoll is not an actor in the world anymore. But I tell you what we can do is we can have these sword spiders right here. Look at that. We've got an entranced sword spider and we've got a magenta sword spider. And without those settings, we would just have regular old sword spiders that maybe needed some differentiation. Next on the list is DF Curvy Walls by Flamewave000. Now, I use this on basically every map. This adds a lot of functionality to the walls. It's these guys over here where you can make curves or boxes. And let's have a look here. It's a good scene. Some of these are very incomplete. I get a good scene I can show off. Well, I tell you what. Let's go to this shrine to Tempest. And you can see all these circular trees here is something that I did with DF Curvy Walls. So you can make a nice multi-wall circle here. I use this all the time for trees and sometimes for other stuff as well. You know what? Let's go back to... well, we don't have to go back there. So, another module that we use pretty regularly here is Levels by the Ripper 93. The Ripper also makes a number of useful modules available on the Ripper's module hub. So this also supports wall height, which you saw a little bit of that on the Shrine to Tempest. We've got these walls, they have specific heights. At certain elevations, people can see over them. We are going to go to the Gliding Ruin, which is right here. You might remember this from our first video. We've got this beautiful ruin flying through the air, and one of the things that we use for that is levels, which is right here. We can look at our different levels. You see I've got the ruin here as an object. We've got a parallax effect that is from... this used to have a different name, from Tile Scroll. Tile Scroll is another excellent module, and I think I forgot to put it on this list. But if you wanted to have an effect like this, you would use Tile Scroll. It lets you scroll this background tile. This is actually not a background. I don't think this scene even has a background. And speaking of tiles, another module that we use every day is Monk's Active Tile Triggers by Iron Monk. Now, Monk has a number of modules you use, and we're going to go through all of them here in a second that are in the Foundry functionality category. There's a couple in like the quality of life list I was putting together. This allows you to add effects to tiles when either characters enter them, so you can do things like set up a trap that's automated that pauses the game as soon as they enter it and rolls damage or forces them to make a reflex save, or you can use this to make a nice splash page to add sound effects. So here, I've got some triggers so we know what it's going to do whenever someone clicks it. So this opens the party token, which is kind of the loot sheet. That plays a nice little money sound effect. Each of these opens the character sheet of the character. You don't know Loris yet, and you don't know Jade yet either. We've got nice little tarot cards kind of indicating who they are. This opens a map by taking the party, the clicking player, to this map. And this is the kind of thing you can expect to do with active tile triggers. There is a whole world of things you can do, including setting up teleportation tiles, which I think the regions functionality does too. As I'm making this video, Pathfinder 1st Edition, some of the modules that we use just updated to V12, so regions are very new to me and I haven't had a chance to play with them. So maybe we'll have some modules that we use with regions in the future as well. The other Monk modules I use are combat details, which has a number of small things it does. And one of the things that my table seems to like is it notifies the players when their turn is about to happen or when it is their turn. It also has the option to play a sound whenever it's that player's turn. I think I disabled that because it was distracting for a couple of people. But that might be useful for your table, especially if you have some really distractible players. I use Monk's Enhanced Journal, which I'm going to understand maybe has a couple of conflicts with some of the other modules I use, but there are some functions I like of it. The ability to have a bunch of different new journal types, and also one of the things you can do with these is you can create a merchant, and this is accessible to the players, and it allows them to just go into the journals and sell things out of their inventory or out of the party token, which my players like to do. So they take care of the selling using that journal functionality, and that's really easy to set up. And you can also add items that your merchants can buy. This isn't something I usually do, but maybe you would have a recurring NPC in your campaign. You could very easily populate his inventory with some interesting items. You may notice my UI looks a little different, maybe a little tighter or compact. That's because the next module we're going to talk about is Tidy UI by S. Dinnick. I don't know that this has... Nope, totally has settings. So this changes the way some of this looks. I just prefer having a nice, tighter kind of systems over here. There's not really a whole lot to say about that. It does what it says in the box. Next one I have listed here is Chat Portrait, originally by Show You Vanilla, upgraded by P4535992. This is kind of a quality of life module, but that list is very long. And this does something that client side, I don't think my players necessarily know about, but I am absolutely in love with. In addition to adding character portraits to the chat, so if I click on like Real Nase here, we can see that Rill has a character portrait attached to her message. And you'll also see this color, which is purple, and that's my color, but Chat Portrait has an option to tie the player character's selected color to the messages that they put in chat, which is change the color of message background right here, which is something that I absolutely love because it helps me quickly differentiate who is saying what in the game chat. Not all of my players are always able to be on voice, and sometimes they're taking actions as well, and it helps me pick those out. You can also change the size of the portraits. Okay? Another useful thing. I absolutely love that. And Chat Portrait does a couple other great things, but that's the number one reason I use it. I would find a different mod to add pictures to the messages if I had to, but I have to have this. Next on my list is Limits. This functions significantly differently in version 12. Limits was previously a module that you could add visual limits to scenes. You could say characters in the scene can only see 10, 20 feet, whatever. It would be under the lighting situation. There'd be like a limits button down here. That's not something that's presently available on this. What it does do now is it changes the behavior of Voice of Mine doesn't want to load up here. The behavior of regions. So this region, using limits, has been set up to function as a darkness spell. In previous versions, you could set limits to... There'd be a button here called Limits, and you could say that people couldn't see in that. It didn't act as true darkness, but here it does. So we want to click on Mossel over here. Mossel has dark vision. He can see inside this darkness spell, and Turandil does not. Turandil cannot see inside of this darkness spell at all. So this is something that is very useful if you have player characters or NPCs who are going to be using darkness spells. This is a big, major difference from being on the table where everything's always out in the open. Next up, I have Grid Scaler, which I don't ever use. However, I want to credit this. Grid Scaler is by Arcane Robobrain, JB Haywood, Atomic D Mac, and The Goodwin. So I don't use this, but shout out to it anyway. This is a function that I'm pretty sure is present on Roll20, if I remember correctly. I haven't played on Roll20 in a long time. And it's generally useful if you want to have effects like this. This allows you to scale your grid by drawing boxes. So if you've got a map, you put it in, you don't want to mess with the controls, you can just say, boom, I'm gonna click and drag a box here and scale my grid. I don't really want to do this, so oh no. I'm gonna mess this whole encounter up. Oh yeah, I definitely did. There's no Control Z for that. That's okay. I can fix this. I can absolutely fix this. So normally what you would do for scaling your grid is you would like put the grid size in, or you would open up the ruler and I'll come back and fix this. You don't want to watch me fixing that anyway. We're almost to the end though. So I've got a couple more here. We've got Baileywiki Mass Edit presets. This allows you to kind of have something you make, like those tree walls from earlier, which I don't have one, or a torch that you would commonly. You're just going to click this little library here, and you can click and drag your torches out to your map very easily. It's going to be something that's super handy, going to save you a lot of time, and one of the things I found playing online is that this requires a lot of prep time, much more than at the table. So that's pretty much it for the functionality modules that we use. I hope this video has maybe been helpful to you. This is Bosheck. I'll see you later.